Good evening. My name is Dr. Julianne Scott-Pollock. I am a performance of identity narrative researcher. I'm most interested in stories of what it means to live in a body that has been stigmatized by illness or disability. I've conducted interviews with women who self-identify as bulimic. I've conducted interviews with physically disabled professionals, people who self-identify as physically disabled professionals, and people who self-identify as experiencing memory loss. This is my fourth study. The reason I enjoy listening to people's stories is I believe once we understand how it feels to live in another's body, that can change how we move through the world. So in addition to writing research articles and writing books, I also stage my research. I use a method called performance ethnography to translate the data into an accessible performance for general audiences. About 2 years ago, I started interviewing people who live with seizures.
So, why study seizures?
This seems so specific.
These stories matter to me. 6 years ago, my 2-year-old son, Tony, stopped suddenly. He started breathing heavily. He raised his hands in the air. He flushed red. The whole episode took about 3 seconds, but one every hour turned into several in rapid succession. And some were just 3 seconds, but some were as long as 20 seconds. When he turned 6, I was writing a book about the other performances that I've made, and he asked me why I had never made a show about seizures, so that people who have never experienced seizures or known anyone who lived with seizures could know what it's like, so they wouldn't be afraid. So I started listening to stories. I've listened to 28 so far.
But we'll only hear from 10 of them tonight.
Only 10?
Well, that's all there's time for.
But the stories are so varied.
So are the seizures.
Tony has focal motor seizures with awareness.
Focal means that it's only in one part of his brain. If it was his whole brain, it'd be generalized.
And if he wasn't aware or alert while he's having these seizures, it would be called impaired awareness.
Motor means the seizure causes movement. If it didn't cause movement, then it'd be absent.
Absent seizures usually means the person just stares off, frozen.
Motor seizures have different kinds of movements. A tonic means that the muscles become limp.
Clonic means that the muscles jerk.
And tonic means the muscles are rigid.
Both tonic and clonic are rare by themselves. Most seizures are tonic-clonic, meaning the muscles are rigid and twitching.
But absent seizures can also just have slight twitching. They call this myoclonus.
The kind of seizure changes the treatment, the diagnosis, and the life of the person.
So here are 10 stories.
Performed as they were told.
Transcribed.
And now retold.
So, I had my first seizure when I was 16 years old. I had the opportunity to study abroad. And it was a pretty big deal for me, a pretty big deal for my family as well. I was getting to do an exchange swap with this family in this small village right outside of Madrid in Spain. And I was just really excited. They had a son, his name was Alejandro. He lived with my family and I lived with his. So I get there, I'm really excited, and they were nice. They were really nice. And they cook really good food. Like, I love Spanish food. The first night I got there, they made this spicy rice, and a little bit of seafood with it. I couldn't believe that I was living there and that was gonna be my dinner. I didn't really eat seafood growing up, so yeah, whatever. Alejandro, he had 2 little brothers. One was 8 and one was 11. And it was just really cool being a big brother to some little brothers. You know, I didn't have brothers growing up, I only had sisters. So, and they thought my American accent was funny, by the way. Like, they wanted to see if I knew Britney Spears, as if. But, So, I got there, I'm having fun, and then that's when it happened. I was there for about a week or so when it happened. So I was with some friends that I met over in high school, and we were on our way to a discotheque. And we were, well, first of all, a discotheque is a club, by the way. And you don't have to be like 18, 21, or whatever, high schoolers can go. So I was on my way to a discotheque, and the last thing I remember was that I was walking up to my house. I was on my way home, and I was walking up to my house. The next thing I know, I woke up in the garden. And I had a really awful headache. Like one of those you're gonna die kind of headaches. And my arms and limbs, it hurt just to move them. It felt like they weighed 10,000 pounds. I had 2 black eyes and a bloody nose. I slept for 4 days after that happened. And the family, they were sort of okay with it. Like they were disapproving but quiet, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess they figured I was some drunk American who would eventually learn my lesson. But the fact of the matter is this. I drank before. A couple of beers is not going to make me pass out mid-step. I'm a big guy. But anyway, it kept happening. And it was the 4th time. Yeah, I believe it was the 4th time. I broke my nose. And the family really didn't want me around the boys anymore. Like, they thought I was too sick, or they thought I was completely drunk, that I just should not be around them whatsoever. And that's when they sent me home. Like, Alejandro, the kid who was living with me, the kid who was living with my family, he had to move to a different house in town so that I could move back. And it was just so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. Like, I was only there for a month. There was this big going away party, like a whole bunch of people came out, and I had to see everyone again, and it was just a month later that I'm back. And when I got back, there were just so many scans, there were so many tests, and then I finally got the diagnosis. I had epilepsy. No. I have epilepsy. I have what they call grand mal seizures, but are now called generalized tonic-clonic seizures by people who know about it. It's the whole convulsing on the ground thing. And I don't remember what happens. Like when they go down, I don't know what happens, and I still sleep for days after they happen. I'm on medication now. I take carbamazepine, and it works till it doesn't, and I have another seizure. Yeah, I'm just hoping that I could be seizure-free for 12 months. Uber's fine, but I'd love a license. Like, I would love a license. And I still have a seizure at least once a year. And my last seizure was 11 months ago. And I'm, like I said before, I'm just hoping I can be seizure-free for 1 year. And driving would be really nice. I'd really love to have a car. I'd really love to drive, but if I were to have a seizure while I was driving, I could die. Other people could too. I hate having epilepsy. I mean, it is what it is, but I hate it. You know?
I'm so happy you're doing this study. People need to be aware. And I would like for you to understand and to tell everyone that my seizures are just a part of me. I would never take any medication for them. You see, my auras, as they're called, are beautiful. I would never resent them. But it's dark for a second, and then it's so vibrant. All the wonderful, soothing colors, like pink and blue and green and yellow. And then it's just joy and happiness and love. And God just comes over me. See, it's like having this rush whenever you're falling and there's safe love all around. Or it's like, if it was the warm, bubbly jacuzzi waters and you keep falling over and over again, and you're caught each time in this warm, comfortable, soft embrace as you fall. I feel one with everyone and everything. God is there. I know what it feels like to have God there because my brain connects me and I know. And then I can share it with the world. You know, a long time ago, before this medicine and mythology and medicalization, people with my brain were understood to be chosen. I was chosen for this. And people with seizures were understood to be special. We access the spiritual. We were the medicine women, we were the shamans, we were the prophets. But now it's just something to dull with medication, something to manage and fix. There's nothing wrong with me. I remember one time I was on a plane and I felt it coming on, that beautiful rush. And so I looked over at the man that was sitting next to me, and I knew I was going to lose myself in it. So I smiled so he'd know not to be scared. Well, when it was over, I was across his lap, and he was laughing, and I was laughing too. At the time, he was an atheist. But after talking with me, because we had been flying all the way from San Francisco to New York, and after he got through talking with me, he found God. Because my brain connects me with God, and then I can connect him with others. I know what heaven's like. I'm never taking meds. That feeling, I wish you could feel it.
So, my husband specializes in epilepsy. He studies people who have seizures that are just so severe that they require temporal lobectomy to take care of it. And he kind of just understands the deficiencies, the impact it has on their lives and things of that nature. And so first of all, we got married when I was 26. We met and got married. And I was just so fortunate because, well, one, he's just amazing and he understands. And two, well, this is his realm. And he was able to connect me to some phenomenal physicians. But that being said, I got diagnosed when I was 26.
I mean, yeah, I have seizures. I've had them since I was little. I don't know how little, but, you know, little. So little that I don't remember when they started. I don't have insurance. My parents never had insurance. They worked hourly jobs. They were self-employed. So my dad fixes houses and my mom cleans them. So yeah, I don't know what kind, but it's the usual kind, you know? I black out and shake all over. My My ex said that I flop like a fish and I drooled a lot. He was an asshole.
I have myoclonic epilepsy, which a lot of doctors don't know. GPs and internists don't really understand epilepsy. They know that if you fall down and have a tonic-clonic seizure, that's epilepsy, but it's a spectrum. Starting off for a few minutes, that's a seizure, to, these very severe tonic-clonic episodes. I presented at the age of 26 with myoclonic epilepsy. That's about when it started to appear, I think. It's pretty typical for myoclonic epilepsy. I was at Tulane University at the time studying for my doctorate, so I was getting care at the university hospital. And, just the way that they treat it, but then there's the issue of gender and health care. And so, of course I was hysterical. That's how I was treated.
Like, oh, you just need to get some rest or you're stressed about exams. So the way that myoclonic epilepsy manifests, I don't know if you all have ever just been on the edge of falling asleep and you experience that slight twitch. That's a myoclonic event. But with myoclonic epilepsy, I experience them very violently. I'll just be on the edge of falling asleep and I get this violent jerk. And sometimes my head will snap back and I'll hit my head on the headboard and just flail around really fast in my sleep. And I even make noises because the muscles in my chest contrast so fast. When it first started happening, I had to tell my boyfriend at the time, I don't know what that was, but I'm fine. And for several years, I tried to get diagnosed. But before I was diagnosed, I got treatment. That treatment was benzodiazepine.
I don't know. I'm really sick after. I'm sick for days after. I can't get out of bed. I just lay in bed for 5 days. I can't really hold a job. They fire me because I can't come in. My head just pounds and I can't open my eyes. And it happens every few months. And I don't know. I just live with it, I can't really afford to see anyone. And anyway, I just deal with it. I don't want to be on anything. People act weird around you when you take that brain stuff.
So mine are under control. I'm on clonazepam or whatever. But there's some stigma between having it and treating it. I've been on clonazepam for 20 years now. And when I go to the doctor to get my drugs, because drugs aren't usually just one thing, they'll look at me, they'll show me, and they'll say is this what you wanted? And they'll whisper it. And I don't have any shame, so I'll go overboard and say it really loud, and I'll be like, yes, that's my clonazepam. It should be 4 grams. Making sure that everybody can hear it, because why should I be ashamed?
Once I did mention it to this doctor in the emergency room. I was there because I had broken my foot and I thought he should know that I have seizures. Even though I've never been to a doctor for them, I thought he should know for whatever reason. I sometimes think that if I'm super stressed, then maybe that's what brings them on. And pain is stressful, So he started asking me all of these questions, and he ordered this EEG and this MRI, and they were so expensive. And they didn't see anything, nothing. And they said, you can't have epilepsy if they don't see anything. And then they started asking me all these questions, maybe I was making it up to get drugs or something. So I don't even mention it anymore.
Every new physician I go to has this checklist to see if I have drug-seeking behavior. Clonazepam is a controlled substance, so I can't stock up on it. So I have to go in every month to get my new prescription.
I'll never be on anything. I just deal with it. I'm okay.
I'll be on clonazepam for the rest of my life until it doesn't work and they put me on something else. Well, if they put me on something that isn't clonazepam or a controlled substance, I guess I won't get my monthly activism in.
I mean, I'll be okay. Well, I'll be okay as long as I can live here with my grandpa. He says I can stay here forever. He owns this trailer, you know? My parents have a lot going on, and I don't want to burden them with me since I really can't hold a job. I miss too much work from my seizures, and they end up letting me go. Plus, I can't drive, and it's so hard to get anyone to reliably drop you off anywhere. Grandpa likes the company, though. He can't drive either since his stroke. I hate doctors, you know? They all think they're so much better and know so much more than I do. I mean, I live with it. I'm fine. I can't really work. I mean, I miss too much to really have a job, but I'm safe here. And I take really good care of Grandpa. I mean, it'll work itself out, don't you think? I mean, I'm doing the best that I can. Grandpa and I both are.
Hello? Hello. This message is for Dr. Julianne Scott-Pollock, the epilepsy researcher for Seizures. Call me when you get this message. Listen, I don't mean to bother you, doctor. I just thought you should know. Cassie passed away 2 months ago. My Cassie. She just didn't wake up. They said that it was seizure. It was a seizure. It happens to some people, and it happened to my Cassie. They didn't think that she had it, but now they believe she did. Yeah. She really enjoyed talking to you, though. She told everybody that she was a part of this seizure story research project. Listen, doctor, if you ever make a book, could you send me a copy? I'd love to hear her story. She also mentioned that you did some recording with her. I would love to hear her voice. My address is 2406 Drive. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, it started about 4 years ago. So I'm 25 now, I'm about to be 26. And my first seizure, well, I think it might have been my second seizure, but the first one we saw was on November the 14th, 2014. So I'd come back home to visit my mom and my best friend, who I currently live with now. He was working up in North Dakota drilling oil, and he had come home. So that was a big reason why I came home, was to go and see him. So I was getting ready to go to the bar to grab a drink or two with him, and I'm walking around the kitchen table, and I don't know what happened, but I woke up on the ground with paramedics, like, all around me, and that was my first seizure. So the doctor, he recommended that I get a service dog, because at the time I was living far away from home, and I was having 1 a week, 2 a week. Yeah, so it kind of just came out of nowhere and then started happening a lot. So I have Gizmo now. Gizmo is trained to detect my seizures before they even happen. So when a person's about to have a seizure, their brain goes through like this chemical imbalance, and it emits a little tiny smell. And dogs, they can be trained to smell that smell. So when Gizmo smells a seizure coming on, he's got about 15, 20 seconds to alert me. If he's not able to alert me in time, he's trained to crawl underneath me to break my fall. After that, he's trained to roll me over so I don't choke on my vomit, and then lay on top of me. And then when I come out of the seizure, I just wake up to lots of dog kisses. So Gizmo used to be able to catch me, but he can't anymore because it hurts him. So he'll just let me fall. He'll still roll me over and make sure I don't choke and lay on top of me until I come out, but I might wake up with a bump or something on my head now. So we're in a big debate with the insurance company about this right now, because they're telling me that in order to get a new seizure dog, I would have to turn Gizmo in. And that, he's my dog. I've had him for 3 years now. He's mine. I can't just give him up. So we're in a big, I don't want to say lawsuit, but it's kind of heading towards that way. But I'm confident. Because it's been proven that like older dogs, they can assist in the training of new dogs. So I mean, yeah, Gizmo can't catch me when I fall out, but you know, he can be sure that the new dog stays alert, that he remembers to roll me over, stay on top of me, just be sure that I'm okay. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what Dad's shooting for. I mean, he's my dog. I'm not getting rid of him. But I need a dog to catch me too. So that's where I'm at, or we're at.
So I have a really rare epilepsy trigger, photosensitive epilepsy. The kind where you can't have in front of strobe lights or the person will go into seizure. It's only 5% of people with seizures. I have that. But I'm a part of 3% of people with photosensitive epilepsy, the kind where you'll have a seizure from a bold pattern, like polka dots, squares, or stripes. It's so weird, but it totally happens, and no one ever believes it. I can tell even you look skeptical, but it's a thing. So I started working at this PR firm, and I let them know that I had epilepsy and that patterns could set off my seizures. That was my reasonable accommodation, to have people not wear bold patterns. And my boss, she didn't believe it. Like she didn't. So I went into work my first day. 4 people had on these bold patterns, these polka dot striped shirts on. They thought I was fucking joking. And I went into seizure. They didn't call the paramedics or anything. Anything at all. They thought I was just joking and that it was this elaborate hoax. So the next day, I go into HR. HR says that they can't tell people what to wear beyond the office's dress code. So I can work where I have no way of stopping people from making me go full tonic-clonic, like wetting myself, concussion, long recovery, or tonic-clonic. Or I can be unemployed. That's where I am now. It's even happened on blind dates. We'll meet online and I'll tell them, don't wear bold patterns, or I'll go into seizure. They'll do it anyway, like I was just fucking joking. And it's not until they don't see my face is all bloody, I have a concussion, and I wet myself, that maybe, just maybe, I'm not fucking kidding. I get seizures from your fucking patterns. People suck.
So, I have epilepsy. I have generalized tonic-clonic seizures.
I have generalized tonic-clonic seizures.
They were diagnosed when I was a little less than 2. They thought I'd grow out of them, maybe, because some people do, but I've been growing for a while, so I guess they're here to stay.
They started when I was 4. I think I've always had them.
And I take all kinds of medication because seizures are dangerous. I mean, really dangerous. Right now, they don't really see any effect on my brain or cognition or whatever. I mean, I have a law degree, so I must be okay, right? And my clients don't really complain any more than any other lawyer's clients, so I'm good. Well, right now, I'm scared. Well, not scared really. I'm just mad and uncomfortable, and I'm mad and uncomfortable with the crazy conservatives on the Supreme Court and their stupid heartbeat bill. Can I say crazy conservatives? Is that offensive? Anyways, I'm scared. The drugs that I need to be well, to suppress my seizures so I can drive a car and feel safe swimming and boating and hiking and all the things I live here to do. I need to be independent. And I'm happy with this life I have with the man I love and the friends around me. Nothing is missing. And I want to keep my seizures suppressed, so I've decided not to have kids.
I have one son. He will be our one and only. I saw that picture on your website of your kids. I always thought I'd have a huge family. I was one of 4 too. I always thought I'd be a mom to a huge family.
And the drugs I'm on have a laundry list of side effects for pregnant women's babies. Cleft lips, cleft palates, face malformation, developmental disabilities. It's pretty grisly. I've read the internet warnings and I'm not going off of them, ever. And if I get pregnant, I'm having an abortion. I mean, we're careful, but accidents happen and they won't let me get my tubes tied unless I'm over a certain age or have a certain number of kids or have a pregnancy that goes wrong enough that they think I can have my tubes tied. And I don't meet any of their requirements for surgery yet.
I don't want to scare anyone who wants babies and has seizures, but my pregnancy was horrible from the start. I had morning sickness from like the very first day. Well, the first day that I knew I was pregnant. I could hardly keep my anti-seizure meds down. I was in and out of the hospital for the first 3 to 4 months for either seizure prevention or seizures. And I was already taking a daily dose of 5 milligrams of folic acid. My neurologist told me to do that in case I got pregnant. He knew I wanted babies. He said I could just go off my meds and that they'd figure it out. But I ended up in the hospital in bed rest at 25 weeks, right up until 31 weeks when my son was born. My seizures were out of control the whole time. So much so that I ended up in the ICU on life support twice. I had a 45-minute seizure and I was out for 5 days and they didn't think I was gonna wake up. And then I had 2 38-minute seizures and I was out for 4 days each time. They told my husband to be ready to say goodbye because they didn't think I was gonna wake up. And then I did. I always eventually woke up. The meds were just too dangerous for my baby, for Alex, so they just let me seize. But I'm currently on 4 anti-seizure meds, and I'm controlling them great. I've been seizure-free for the past 6 months, and that's the longest it's been, the past 10 years.
I will get an abortion if I need to, despite whether or not this stupid heartbeat bill gets overturned. I mean, I have my means, I will make it happen. But I get scared, you know. People don't realize the choices people have to make. I've made mine and it's nobody's business.
I had my tubes snipped out right in the middle of my emergency C-section. Snipped, not tied. And there seems to be a few complications because I'm having a lot of pain in this whole area. I feel like my uterus is falling out. It might be meds related, but I'm having a hysterectomy in 2.5 weeks. I'm 31. It's not how I envision my life happening, but it's happening.
All women, whether or not they have the means to travel out of state or pay out of pocket, should be able to make the decision of whether or not they want kids. All of them. I choose my meds. I choose not to risk a child getting sick because of my meds. I choose not to go through constant seizures because I got off my meds. I choose a seizure-free life that I can have if I never go off these meds that cause serious birth defects. Tell them that. I made my decision and it wasn't hard. It's done.
I don't wish my pregnancy on anybody, but my biggest fear is being hospitalized and having a toddler at home. He's just so small. It's not worth the risk. So I made a decision. It's done. I'm done. I'm one and done.
What do seizures feel like?
I hear people yelling mean things at me.
I feel like I'm moving fast and frozen.
I feel so happy I can't stop laughing.
I feel like I'm flying.
I feel startled.
I feel scared. My mouth is dry.
My mouth tastes salty.
Mine is sweet.
It tastes like metal.
It tastes so bitter.
I don't taste anything, but I do smell spoiled milk.
I smell burning.
Yeah, I see flashing lights.
I don't feel anything.
Nothing?
Not everyone has an aura.
So there was this one time I broke my granddad's 2 ribs because he was trying to hold me still and he thought that I was just jumping around. There was this other time, and this was actually kind of funny, at our undergrad convocation, I attacked the university president and knocked over 900 diplomas that were stacked next to him. So this is a 75-year-old man, and he's getting up there at the convocation and he's welcoming everybody. And me, being the student body president, I was on the front row of the stage. And I get up, basically, I have a seizure, and I pretty much attack him. Like, put my arms around him, I start jerking, jumping everywhere, and the diplomas went flying. The whole university, the entire university, watched as their student body president was having a seizure. I sit down, and this congressman was sitting next to me, and he gives me this look, like he thought that I was possessed. That doesn't happen anymore, though, not since I had my surgery. It worked. A couple of weeks ago, I polled some of my friends and asked them if they had any memorable seizures, and these are some of the ones that they talked about.
Oh, man.
Okay, no, I'll stop. All right, so we were in gym class, right? And out of nowhere, you just go off on a dead run across the gym. And when I say dead run, I mean like a full sprint. And you run headfirst into the intramural office window. Oh my goodness. And then here's the crazy part about that. You just got up, you dusted yourself off, you went back to playing 3-on-3s, bro. I ain't never seen anything more funny in my life.
Control.
Ask him who won.
Oh, man.
Don't worry about that. Yeah, he won, but yeah.
Whatever. So a friend of ours was towing your car, and you decided to just turn the wheel and sideswipe two girls to cars in front of Evans Hairstyling College, and then crash into the fire hydrant across the street.
Shouldn't have been laughing.
Dude, I remember that one time at graduation, you just started running down the sidewalk while everyone else was walking. And I tried to keep up with you in my robe, but you had a dozen paces on me. For a fat man in a master's robe, I gotta run for my money.
There was this one time that you took your pants off in my car, and I just kept telling you to put your head down, and
Oh, my bad.
We were listening to that dignitary speak one time, and I walked into the gym looking for seats, and I see this really tall guy just flailing around, knocking over everything. I did not know what was going on until someone looked at me and said, "Oh, that's Jed. He has seizures for attention."
They're completely out of my control. People thought that there was any rhyme or reason as to how they came about, but there just wasn't. And that was frustrating. And also, it was difficult when every decision that I made was contingent on how having a seizure would impact that choice. Like, should I drive this car? Or should I get into that pool? Or should I go out with that really pretty girl in my class? Or should I drink this can of Mountain Dew Code Red? Anything and everything that I did was centered around the fact that at any point I could lose consciousness, wet my pants, and perform violent actions with my body. That's a curse. To have everything be contingent on your unconscious behavior. It doesn't happen anymore, though. A couple of students at my undergrad put together a fundraiser to help pay for an experimental brain surgery. Donations came flooding in. We raised $18,500 for my surgery. They took out the part of the brain that was causing the seizures. That's something that I'll never be able to pay back over the course of my whole life.
So, I have what they call frontal lobe epilepsy. Typically, my seizures only happen when I'm extremely tired or extremely stressed out, often as I'm falling asleep or right when I'm waking up. I have in the past experienced kind of an aura, I know something's wrong, but I don't quite know how to articulate it. There's just kind of this general hazy feeling, and it's like I know there's something wrong with my brain, or my brain's just not quite acting the way I expect it to, or the way it should, or the way I think it should. The last 2 seizure episodes that I had, I know because they were witnessed. I had basically in the morning, right as I was waking up, I suffered several grand mal type seizures that lasted anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes with a pretty severe post-seizure state where when I came out of it, I was just angry at the world. I broke several things in my house the last time I came out of it. My partner at the time, my fiance at the time, had called 911, and I knew the people who showed up, and I did not have a very high opinion of those people. They were fellow healthcare providers, and I told them to exit my house in very colorful language and told them my assessment of them as healthcare providers. Now, this isn't something I would normally do. That filter just wasn't there. So I guess I would say it lasted for about 3 or 4 days. I just felt like I had been hit by a Mack truck. Just utterly exhausted, muscle pain, fatigue, general hazy feelings, that kind of thing. Anyway, the fiance in that story is no longer my fiance. I'm with somebody new now. The thing you gotta realize with frontal lobe epilepsy is that it affects the part of the brain that controls all of your emotions. So people with frontal lobe epilepsy, they have more energy, they're more intense, they're more extreme, more emotional. And that's gotta be okay with the people who wanna be close to them. You know, our brains are always overfiring. And even when we're on meds, even when the seizures are suppressed, you know, and that's got to be okay with the people that are around us. You know, not a lot of people can handle it, but some people can. And so you've got to decide if you're one of those people or not. So what did we learn?
We learned that embodying the stories of others is complex, and it takes careful research.
And attention to honoring people's experiences and truth.
That seizures can be scary but beautiful.
That not everyone has access to health care.
Or the social support that they need.
Cultural location impacts experience.
We need to listen to people living with seizures.
Because we as a society do not understand the complexity of seizures.
That seizures are as varied and unique as the bodies that experience them.
So what do you hope for?
That this performance will stay with our audience.
So that they can go into the world with new perspectives.
That they will be thoughtful.
Share what they've learned.
And be intrigued enough to do more research.
That they will see that the world could be better.
That they, like us, will become advocates.
For justice.
For inclusion.
Because that's why we embody the stories of others for you.
And that is Seizing, Personal Stories of Living with Seizures. Please stay for a conversation with both the performers and the production staff after the show.